First thing you need to do is wash your hands.
So, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Arias. May I ask for your name and date of birth?
My name is Enzo and I am born on December 15, 2004.
Okay, thank you for that. So, today I have been asked to examine your heart. This will involve looking from the end of the bed, feeling a pulse in your neck and your wrist, and also listening to your heart. Would that be okay?
Sure, that's fine.
Before we begin, do you feel any pain anywhere?
No.
So, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, I'm gonna start now. So, I'm gonna start by looking from the end of the bed. So now we will inspect from the end of the bed to look for shortness of breath, cyanosis, pallor, and edema. So now may I inspect your hands? Can you raise your hands? And flip them over. So next, can you put together the two index nails? This is to look for clubbing of fingers. Okay, thank you. So now can you extend your arms forward again so that I can check the temperature? This is to assess and compare the temperature of both hands. Assess capillary refill time. Palpate radial pulse to assess the heart rate and rhythm. Assess for radio-radial delay. Next is to assess for a collapsing pulse. Next is to palpate the brachial pulse. Okay, so now I will be listening and feeling the pulse in your neck. So while I'm listening, can you hold your breath for me?
Sure.
Okay, now you can breathe normally. Next is to measure the jugular venous pressure. Eliciting hepatojugular reflux. Now can you look straight forward for me? So now I'll be pulling your lower lid down. Inspect the eyes for signs relevant to the cardiovascular system. Can you open your mouth? And put your tongue in the roof of your mouth. Also inspect the mouth. So now I will be inspecting your chest. Can you raise your right arm for me? And now for your left. Now you palpate the apex, beat, and assess position. Now you assess for a parasternal heave. Next is to assess for thrills across all four valves. Auscultate each of the heart valves while palpating the carotid pulse. That will be the mitral valve, tricuspid valve, pulmonary valve, and the aortic valve. Then repeat auscultation of the four heart valves using the bell of the stethoscope. Now you auscultate the carotid arteries to identify radiation of the aortic murmur. Can you sit forward for me? deep breath in and out. And hold it. Roll the patient onto their left side and listen over their mitral area with the diaphragm of the stethoscope during expiration to listen for a consystolic murmur caused by mitral regurgitation. Continue to auscultate into the axilla to identify radiation of this murmur. Next is to inspect the posterior chest wall for any deformities or scars. And then auscultate the posterior lung fields. And then palpate for sacral edema. Palpate the patient's ankles for evidence of pitting edema. So in this part, I will be extending the set of examinations for the peripheral vascular. So first, I inspected the abdomen for visible palpations and palpate the aorta. And next will be auscultating the aorta and renal arteries. So now I will inspect and compare the lower limbs, assess and compare the temperature of the lower limbs, and assess the capillary refill time of the lower limbs. Now I will palpate the femoral pulse and assess for radiofemoral delay. Next is auscultating over the femoral pulse. Palpate popliteal pulse. Palpate the posterior tibial pulse. And palpate the dorsalis pedis pulse. So now I'm gonna touch your leg slightly and tell me if you feel the sensation either from your left or right leg, okay?
Okay. Right. Left. Right. Right.
So now for the Berger's test. With the patient positioned supine, stand at the bottom of the bed and raise both of the patient's feet to 45 degrees for 1 to 2 minutes. And also, observe the color of the limbs. Can you please sit down? In this part, I sit the patient up and ask them to hang their legs down over the side of the bed. Okay, sir, so the examination is now finished. Thank you for your time. And lastly, you summarize your findings and suggest further assessments and investigations. Thank you.